moving on to our next category. Are you still watching? So this closely relates to our what's hot topic. We're gonna be like analyzing how gangster and hood films. But first, if you've never watched one in your life, I'm gonna throw out some movies as examples and the directors who are pretty much the pioneers of these films. So you got movies like Boys in the Hood, came out in 1991. That's by John Singleton. And then you have South Central by Stephen Milburn Anderson, 92, I think. Menace to Society by Albert Allen Hughes. That's
pretty much a biography of my life, but they take stuff out to make it believable.
1993. And then you got Juice by Ernest Dickerson, and that was 92, I believe, as well. So if you have never checked out those movies, these movies are pretty much the foundation of what we consider 90s gangster hood films and what we have now. So they pretty much influence these type of movies that we have today. And so pretty much we're just going to go into, discussing these because I feel like it really relates to all day and a night. I feel like this is a prime example of like it was definitely influenced by these directors in these 90s movies, but lacked in the same sense of like message. And I feel like it was also another example of the fact that like 90s our modern day like gangster and hood films don't hit as hard as 90s do. Like they don't. Like tell me one. No, give me two. Because the 90s had a plethora. Tell me two films that you would consider a gangster or hood film of the 2000s, 2010s, and maybe 2020s that you think is like on the same level of Menace to Society, South Central, Boys in the Hood, Juice. Give me some examples. There are any.
Reno 911 count.
But that's just what I'm saying. That's an example. And I feel like here we are. So like if there's a show on Netflix that kind of analyzes Black filmmakers and Black films. If you have not seen it, we'll definitely show a little trailer of it right now as I'm speaking. Check that out. It's on Netflix. It's worthy. You learn about, artists such as Lena Waithe, Robert Townsend. You be quiet. You learn about Ernest Dickerson, Spike Lee. Then you also learn about some of the innovative actors of Black films. So, just check those out. Like Sidney Poitier. Y'all know what I mean. But yeah, but it pretty much said that like during the 90s, you had movies like 89. You had the movie Colors came out. It wasn't until John Singleton came out with Boys in the Hood, and you had Cuba Gooding Jr. acting it, that people were like, "Whoa, this is something. This is something to where Black audiences could connect with, people from the hood could connect with, and producers out in Hollywood could sell, who felt like was marketable." And so they realized they hit a gold mine. Then comes when you think you have a gold mine, what do? You play that mug out. So in the 90s, you had a whole plethora of like gangster films, greats. Don't get me wrong, there's more greats, but there are also some misses. And then you started seeing those fizzle out during the 2000s and 2010s. You might get a few stragglers, but they still weren't as worthy as our 90s ones. So
okay, when did I just lost it. I just had one. I swear I had one. When did Training Day come out?
Training Day came out 2001. That's what I said. You still had a few. You still had a few that was like hitting in the 2000s and 2010s, but it wasn't to the plethora of like the 90s did. 90s had them back to back. I just named those, and those are only four. You got Belly, In Too Deep, all of that.
Do you think it's because a lot of that stuff is moved over to TV and away from like the big screen? Like, all right, so like obviously you had The Wire, which is like the first one. That was like 99, 2000, something like that. But since then, we've had a lot of stuff. And like, I mean, I don't know everything on the top of my head, but just even like Power, right? Like, we see shows like Power all the time, or Snowfall, or like, you know what I mean? These are good.
I think
So like
I agree with you. I think there's more of a desire for them in a series where you can have more of it, whereas it could be long and drawn out, where a
and
story can
fleshed
be
out.
built out. Yes, where a story can be built up. So like Snowfall is another example of those hood films or gangster films because it's pretty much about, set in the 80s and with the crack everything was hitting and all that and somebody trying to hustle off of that. Then you got, like you said, Power. Then you have shows The Wire. You have some shows that have elements of the hood or elements of gangster
Like
life.
Deuces.
Deuces, The Shy.
Yeah,
You
oh,
have
shy.
you have
Yeah.
shows that have elements like that. But I think as audience members, we haven't found directors who can produce movies to such a like who can produce movies to the acclaim like the 90s did. But I think the reason why the 90s was so successful and pumping out movies like that was because we had musicians who really were about that life. We had rappers who were really about that life. You got like Tupac, played in Juice. His music was pretty much so to say. You got Ice Cube, played in Boys in the Hood. Pretty much his life was like that. His music was like that. You have Nas, played in Belly. He had that, he lived in the struggle type life. Like you had artists who are going through these experiences. We have rappers collaborating with these directors in regards to telling these stories musically and cinematically. And so I think that's why it works so well, because not only was a desire for it musically, people are like, okay, I want to see this visually. So I'm hearing it and I'm trying to form my own pictures. You have people who maybe not walk the life or kind of like, I want to see what this looks like. And then you get the earliest depictions of that with like colors, and then Boys in the Hood, it's kind of like, oh, I want more of this because this is a reflection of my life, or this is a reflection of the life that Tupac is talking about, or um, Biggie is talking about, Ice Cube
Mm-hmm.
is talking about. This is what they're talking about, so I want to see more of it.
I
Now,
think too. Oh, my bad.
I was just saying nowadays, I mean, I feel like we have some artists who can say, like, yeah, I live this life. I still live this life. And if y'all make a movie in relation to this life, it's cool. But you have more people who like love to say they about their life musically, and they're nowhere near that life.
I
Like
think.
they live in the suburbs most of their life.
All right, so I think there's still a lot of artists that are like that, but I do agree with you that like a lot of those films came out in the height of the gangster rap era. So like the
Mm-hmm.
biggest rap artists in the game were the gangster rappers. Now the biggest rap artists and like musicians in the game aren't the gangster rappers, and they're still there. Like YG,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like, and he's also been in like a couple of his own
You
little
have
like
YG,
hood
Meek
films.
Mill. You have you do have the
Who
artists.
both actually. Hey, I'm glad we brought this up because look, that's the thing. These gangster films, these hood films, didn't go anywhere. It's just that they're so easy to make, bro.
Mm-hmm.
There's a million of them made every year on like a
Mm-hmm.
super low budget. So like,
Low budget.
what's the movie with Meek Mill where he had the rose red and my diamonds blue? Like that song was playing in it.
I have no idea. I have no
Yo,
idea.
I always remember that because something crazy happened. Not crazy, but something happened when I was watching that movie. I'll tell you off air. But
Mm-hmm.
no, like that movie, like the Nipsey Hussle's been in a couple like gangster films.
Yes, yes, yes.
YG has like
Yeah.
they're making them, but they're just super low
Low
budget.
budget. Yeah.
Also, too, I feel like, um, bro, I swear I keep forgetting because it gets so far down the rabbit hole. But it has something to do with hustle and flow. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Gear to Die Trying. It's like 50 Cent, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a perfect example because that's a huge artist, gangster
Mm-hmm.
rapper, and they made
Mm-hmm.
the film
Mm-hmm.
Richard Die Trying. And I don't,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not you like that film, I always say it's a good film, like objectively speaking. It's not, there's no crazy holes in it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it still happens, but you do have some to the point of like the people behind the films
Mm-hmm.
have changed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And those relationships with the people behind the films. So I feel like a lot of 90s directors lived in those areas, lived in that life. So I don't see too many up and coming directors and filmmakers living that life so closely. So like John Singleton, he's from that area, so it was so easy. It was natural for him to create a story about that life, movie wise and series wise. Snowfall, Boys in the Hood. You
Mm-hmm.
have people like Dickerson who was around so many people, who had relationships with artists who were around that life, Tupac. Then he had like people who had relationships with people who had lived in the hood and have friends who chose to live the life that comes with being in the hood, quote unquote. So like Spike Lee. I just feel like the dynamic of relationships has changed. And like you said, I think a lot of people are making those movies now, but they're low budget. That is also key. They're low budget. There's not
I've seen a
feature.
lot of low budget.
I've seen a lot of low budget
gangster
too. And it
films.
just seems so, it's like, I say they're, everybody has the origin story. So a lot of these are origins. So like filmmakers who are up and coming, who are trying to grow, and they're not there yet. But it's kind of hard for you to connect with movies like this when they're so like clearly low budget, acting wise, location wise, camera wise. It's hard to.
I think there's a lot of like gangster adjacent films are still being made, or films that would have been gangster films had they been in a different era, but because of where we're at as a country, they've softened them up. Like Dope, for example, right?
That's a hood film, low key.
It is a hood film. I think there's an era.
It's got that indie feel, yeah.
There's an era where that would have been a gangster film. Like the main characters would have been a lot more like edgier. But I feel like because of the times we're in, they're like, let's make it kind of like this. You know what I'm saying?
That's kind of yes, like, but it relates more so with the music. Think about who are musicians who are featured in it. You got A$AP Rocky. Some of the soundtrack was by, Tyler Creator, all that alternative rap type of thing. So it makes sense.
Or like Kicks.
Kicks was another good one. Produced by Nas, starred Erykah Badu. That was another good example.
Like, there's a world where that could have been a gangster film, but it was. What you say?
I was just saying. Oh my god! I was just gonna say it's an example of the fact that like these are like low key gangster or hood stories, but they've distributed in a sense of it being an indie film. Kicks was one of those films where it wasn't even released in a lot of theaters. It was like only a few select theaters. And it had a special run, there was a few select theaters, and then you could buy it off of like Amazon or something like that. That's it. Same thing with Dope was probably the only one that was kind of like you could see in more theaters than Kicks.
I can see that. But yeah, I mean, I just think that the times we're in right now, I think directors and producers are finding it more interesting to make films about the guy that's not the gangster, but the guy that's like around it, as opposed to making a film about the guy that's actually like out here thugging it. You know what I mean? So I don't think that's going to change. I think when we do see like gangster elements in films, it's because it's a biopic. So it's going to be like the Tupac movie, or it's going to be like Straight Outta Compton. I don't foresee us in a lot of films where it's like, this is a gangster film about the dude who's like really in the middle of it, the thick of it, and it's not a biopic. Like, I don't know if it's really like I think there's an audience for it. I just don't think there's a mainstream outlet that's going to like partake in that right now.
Yeah, but we're going to move on. Before we move on, just want to shout out some notable mentions in regards to our modern day gangster hood films. And to these the filmmakers who are behind these, we got movies like ATL, Hustle and Flow, Training Day, Get Rich or Die Trying, Baby Boy, and so many others.
One day we got to really do a breakdown of like a hood film versus a gangster film. Because like ATL is a perfect example of like a hood film,
but with gangster elements into it. I guess so. Yeah. But we're gonna move on to our next category.